Good afternoon. Or for those of you who may be not on the East Coast, good morning. Thank you for joining the Greater Sums Q&A webinar for our 2020 nonprofit grant cohort. We are running on kind of a small crew today, and by small crew, I mean me, so bear with me if there are any technical challenges. I will do my best to field questions, although I have not yet found. There is. Yep, there it is. We do have chat features, and that is our intention today, is to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have about our application process. So just to get things rolling, I will let you know the Greater Sum is a startup ourselves, and our organization was founded to support the work of early stage or startup nonprofits, to boost the capacity of your organizations to implement change and innovation in the nonprofit sector. So what that means is we support organizations that are doing something new or different to solve an existing or new challenge. Our focus areas where we work are in education, environment, health, and community building. And we do our work in kind of a cohort methodology, which means we select a few organizations to fund each year. And in addition to funding, you receive some consulting services, the assistance of skills-based volunteers, and we have a convening, we call it a summit, where we bring together our grant partners and other nonprofits for some training and networking opportunities. So that is the cohort experience on offer. And what we're going to talk about today is the actual application process. So if you have questions about the application process, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box. And I will go ahead and type something in there so you can see where that is on your YouTube screen if you, like me, are not a super regular user of the platform. Okay, first of all, our written application is due July 30th. You have plenty of time to submit an application. If you're looking at the process now, plenty of time to get that application in. We will make our finalist notifications in early October, and we will make grant awards in January 2020. So the cohort experience will be in the 2020 calendar year. Now, the application itself, we really try to make this first round application very simple and straightforward, and that is because we do not want to waste your time as an applicant. I have worked in nonprofits for 20 years and am a big believer in not making people jump through unnecessary hoops. So the things that you will be asked to provide in this application should be relatively straightforward and easy questions for you to answer if you're involved in the day-to-day running of your organization and in the, planning and implementation of your mission. So contact information, we have seen people learn the hard way that it's important to have that contact information be something that, someone who will definitely be with your organization, or a general information email that you list to get notified if you're selected as a finalist. We can't, if the person who fills out the application is not watching their email in early October, we hate it, but we have had people not be in a cohort because they didn't have that right contact information there. Your 501c3 status. We are making grants to nonprofits. So you have to either have your own 501c3 or be operating under the fiscal sponsorship of an existing 501c3, Or if you're in the process of getting your 501c3 and you are just waiting on confirmation on your application, you can go ahead and apply and indicate that. Just know that we will not make any grants to organizations that are not 501c3. So you need to be far enough along in the process that you know you'll have that paperwork done and in your hands by January. Otherwise, again, we wouldn't be able to select you as a member of the cohort. Our focus areas. I think I mentioned before, the focus areas are education, environment, health, and community building. And there's no strategy, or there's no, like, oh, I made the wrong choice in indicating which of those focus areas your work falls under. So I know a lot of people are using some creative use of methodology and tools in a kind of cross-sector way. So just pick the category that makes the most sense to you and best describes your work. It's not the kind of thing where there's only going to be, like so many from each group. And so if I had only chosen a different category, it's not like that. It's just kind of a way for us to organize and understand our applications. It's not something that would have an impact on whether or not you were selected. The first part of the application that is kind of like that inside baseball language of startups is the status of your organization, where we ask whether you're in a startup phase, a growth phase, or a replication phase. This is, again, just to give us a better understanding of what your organization is doing and kind of where you are. I know there are a lot of different definitions of, the timeline involved with being a startup or growth or what have you. Just go ahead and give the language in the application question a read. If it makes sense, if you know your answer, check it, you're ready. If you're having trouble answering this in any way, feel free to reach out to us and ask, just ask the question, get a little guidance. It's not a right answer, wrong answer. Again, it's not like, oh, I clicked the wrong box and now I can't be considered for the grant. We have funded organizations in each of these phases. So it's not going to affect your selection. It's just a way for us to understand the kind of work that you're asking us to support. The problem that you address, it is probably best to assume that the people who will be reading your grant application are not experts in your field. So when you are describing the problem that your organization was founded to address, it's good to put some information in there about the scope of the problem. And then why the solution that you are implementing is different from those that have been traditionally used. Your innovation is what our board and our reviewers are kind of looking to fund. So we know that there is a phenomenal amount of work being done in the nonprofit sector that is building on established best practices and expanding them to underserved areas. Our specific focus, the reason our organization was founded, is to identify new ways of doing things and then help those that are most successful and impactful spread to help more individuals and more communities. So that is an area where, again, you want to be really specific about what's different that you're doing, and you want to demonstrate that you do have a depth of knowledge of the work that's been done in the past and a pretty deep understanding of the challenge that you are addressing. The question of whether this is your core business or a new initiative kind of circles back to that, are you a startup, growth, or replication? So if this project that you're applying for funding for is the one thing that your organization does, then that is your core business. However, if you have been in existence for a while, you have a core business, and you're applying for funding for a new project, a new approach, a new department or program within your organization, then you want to indicate that here. Measuring success is another important part of our application. Our reviewers really want to understand if you're selected, then during the year that you participate in our cohort, what are you expecting to happen? What are the kind of inputs that you will be implementing, and then how will you be tracking outcomes? So we want to understand what it is that your program does, how you affect change, and we want to understand how you know your program is working. So providing a little bit of detail about the methodology that you use there and how you set the targets that you have for the coming year. So rather than just say like, well, we hope 1,000 people will use our programs, how many people used your program this year? How many man hours are going to be devoted to recruiting new people for next year's program? Like what partners will you use to spread the word? And then how did you come to that 1,000 person number? What does it reflect? And then what part of the eligible population that you could serve does that reflect? So measuring success, again, is one of our main things that we do look at in reviewing these applications. Your funding request, this is always a tough one for grant writing. There's some school of thought that just says like, you ask for the top number, always ask for the top number. The most money you can get, that's what you ask for. Our philosophy on this is a little more like, we want to make a meaningful impact on the budget for the organization, for the project in the coming year, but we want the number to be, really relevant to your actual budget projections, your actual need, the program, the budget for the program. So what we ask you to do is to describe your overall budget for the project, and then how our contribution would be a part of that overall picture. So you want to kind of describe what it's going to cost to implement what you've planned, and then ask the greater sum to contribute a portion of that. I can tell you that in the past, we have hesitated to. Well, no, I won't say that. We have made the decision to fund a significant portion of a very small program's overall budget. Our reviewers have not typically wanted to provide a small contribution to a very large budget. Now, if your organization is large, but you're applying for a specific project, give the project budget. You want to acknowledge the overall size of the organization budget, but break down why this project is a new initiative, it has specific costs, and the project budget is what we're going to be interested in. I mentioned a little bit before about our reviewers and our reviewer process, and I'll stop and remind you, if you do have questions beyond what I've covered or want me to go into anything in more detail, go ahead and type that in the chat box, and I will answer those questions as soon as I can. The review process that we use, we have a volunteer team reviewing our written applications, and they are subject matter expert volunteers for our organizations in business, nonprofit management, IT, finance, human resources, kind of a wide array of volunteers. And they're given the same set of criteria to evaluate applications, and the questions that we ask them to try to answer in reading your applications are: is this project really innovative? Is it feasible? is it measurable, and is it scalable? So scalable, we haven't really talked about yet, but we are looking to support an important moment of growth in your organizational life cycle. So my favorite metaphor for this is if you think of a gymnast running towards their apparatus, there's a little, you can tell I'm not the gymnast, but there's a little trampoline step that they bounce on to get onto the bars. That's what the greater sum wants to be for your organization, is that trampoline step. So the time to apply for funding and to be a member of our cohort is when you know your organization is running towards a really big moment and you are going to do all of these glorious things, but you need a boost. So that boost is most impactful when it is provided to organizations that can serve a much larger community than they are currently serving. And so that's where that scalable question comes in, is with a little bit of funding, a lot of energy, support, strategy, help, is this organization going to be able to expand their reach significantly during the coming year? So one of the things that we hope will be a value add to anyone who applies for our program is that all of our reviewers are given the opportunity to provide feedback directly to the applicant. So when you are notified whether you were selected to be a finalist, you'll be offered the opportunity to read that feedback. Not everyone chooses to read their feedback. I'd say about 75% of last year's applicants did request to read it. And again, you've got people from a variety of fields looking at your application. So it may be just exactly what you need to hear in order to make your next grant application even better. Or it may be kind of like a little bit off topic. It's helpful in some way. And then we ask them to provide feedback, but a lot of times we see offers to help, offers to make introductions, links to resources. You know, the reviewers get excited about what an organization is doing and kind of offer up their capacity to help as well. So that is a part of our review process that we hope makes the grant application a little bit more meaningful and helpful to everyone who applies, not just those who are selected as finalists. Now, about those who are selected as finalists, I mentioned you'd be notified in early October, and you will be asked to do a video, like a pitch deck and a video pitch presentation that'll be recorded and shared with our final review committee. So that is a more intensive process, and it is something that we do provide help and coaching with as well. Starting with the pitch deck primer, which is available on our website, and then also with some online and on the phone coaching and consulting about how to pitch your nonprofit to potential funders. So again, hopefully, whether you are selected or not, that is a helpful process to go through. So that's it for the information that I had prepared for today. I will give folks another minute. If you do happen to have questions that you would like to add, now is the time to do that in the chat box. As far as I know, the group chat is working, but I am not super, again, as I mentioned, not super good at the YouTube. So apologies if you have entered a question and I am not seeing it. Please feel free to share that with me via email. You can send it to Anna at thegreatersum.org. And I thank you for your time today and have a great rest of your week. Bye.